All black, everything. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Tell a friend we back, back, we back. Like you share, subscribe, thumbs up like you hitchhiking. Back with a new series. We've been lied to slash. Did you know? When the world's black, we coming back with that fire. With that fire. Do your own research. There's beautiful information in here though. Cross reference, real research type shit. You get right back at it. Think it's like big dreams, many streams, all black everything. Here we go. We talk about anthropology now. An introduction to anthropology by Robert Bailey. Anthropology is the scientific study of human biology, evolution, culture, and behavior all over the globe, from our earliest beginning to modern times. Since the field is so large, it is traditionally divided into four branches: biological or physical anthropology, archaeology, cultural anthropology, and linguistic anthropology. Biological anthropology strives to understand the human being as a living organism, human evolution, and how different races came to be. Sociocultural anthropology seeks to understand the difference between different aspects of cultures, as well as what culture is. Linguistic anthropology is the study of languages of mankind and how they're different from other animal communication. Archaeology, as you'll learn, is the study of ancient cultures. Anthropology as a whole seeks to define what sets human beings apart from other organisms and answers questions like: who are our ancestors? Why are there variations among different groups of people? How did these variations come into existence? How are social relations among among humans organized? Anthropologists work in many ways. They may do everything from research to studying DNA in a lab to taking notes while making observation in the field. There is another field of anthropology which focuses primarily on the many uses of anthropological knowledge called applied anthropology. Like AP math, applied math, similar to it. There are many benefits that come with the study of anthropology, such as a better understanding of you, others, and of our collective history. Modern anthropology is a product of the late 19th century, but we know that the study of humans did not start there. In Anthropology, The Human Challenge, the authors note the distinguishing characteristics of anthropology. It says, quote, many academic disciplines are concerned in one way or another with our species, but anthropology is distinct because of its focus on the interconnectedness and interdependence of all aspects of human experience in all places and time, both biological and cultural, past and present, and present, present. We know that the focus on the interconnectedness and interdependence of all aspects of human experience is found in many indigenous cultures all around the world. But when did anthropology start? Some sources say early anthropology is rooted in the efforts of Western civilization better to understand the lands it was colonizing. That makes sense coming from that perspective. Another way of looking at the question of origins is to examine early Egyptian and Mayan accounts of the different types of people they encountered. Their records suggest that we also studied the diversity of our neighboring people, probably long before we kept such written records, but not with the intent of using this information to subjugate them, as with what happened with later European anthropology. A related field, anthropometry, the scientific study of variation in the size and shape of human body, can be traced back to about 3500 BC in Sumer. All right, now this is a little time or table or examples of how you can. It says 7 ways to connect prehistoric dots. As we noted in the introduction, this book employs a multidisciplinary approach. I'll walk you through a few of the methods used to make sense out of the distant past. Seven. Don't go from seven to one. Anthropo- Anthropological evidence. The pros and cons. Pros: anthropologists describe how societies of people look, live, and think. Cultures that have similar traditions might be related. The cons: anthropologists can influence the people they're studying and may not report the true traditions of those people. Also, even indigenous cultures change. So, a people described 100 years ago may be quite different from how they were 1,000 years ago. Very, very important to understand that. Things always changing, no matter how much they may be similar. Six, mythology slash cultural narratives. Pros: these are the historical records of most of the world's peoples and often record real events in language that must be deciphered. The cons: it can be hard to separate the symbols from the substance. Also, missionaries heavily influenced many indigenous origin myths. So, they make up that big old fantasy. hmm Five, archaeological evidence. Pros: the things we find in the dirt are solid evidence. There are accurate ways to date and to place what ancient cultures left behind. The cons: archaeological remains can be interpreted in many different ways. Many remains, especially artistic representations of black people, have been destroyed or hidden from the public intentionally. I'm going to add intentionally. Number four, ecological evidence. Pros: looking at other forms of evidence like climate, plant, and animal remains and geological evidence can give us clues as to what may have happened and why things happened the way they did. The cons: some scientists ignore social factors which may be unknown to focus on environmental factors which can give us the wrong idea. For example, black people in America didn't move to the north after slavery because the climate was better there. Linguistic evidence. Pros: cultures that share words and languages might be related. Cons: languages mutate very quickly. Also, loan words or entire languages can be adopted by unrelated people because of conquest, i.e., Mayans speaking Spanish and similar sounding words in distant cultures don't mean there's a connection. Number two, skeletal remains. Pros: even when we don't know the people's complexion or culture, we can tell a lot about them by looking at their bone structure. This can reveal, for example, how the first Native Americans looked like Australian Aborigines. Excuse me. The cons: like other archaeological remains, controversial skeletons can be hidden or destroyed. Scientists can also ignore one index, like an arm length that is clearly African, to focus on another, like nose width, which can vary among Africans. And number one, genetic evidence. The pros: genes are the holy grail of a people's history. They can tell us who was with who went where, and when they went there. The cons: we've crossed paths in genes so many times over the past 100,000 years that genetic evidence can tell you different things depending on what you're looking for. Different types of DNA can be can point in different directions based on what's happened with the men versus the women. Also, Europeans have contributed to the DNA of literally billions of original people, further clouding the picture. Not through no arranged marriages either. So there you have it, 7 different ways to connect prehistoric dots. We'll be using all of these methods to establish the claims we make in this book, including others you'll learn about later. You too can begin studying this data on your own, and I advise you to do so. Just a suggestion, no? How do you find this information? Simple. You read and ask questions. You look at our sources and the sources of other books you consult. You follow up and dig deeper. You investigate possible connections and look for contradictory evidence to make sure you're not headed down the wrong track. And you don't just believe the first thing you read or hear, especially if it's not substantiated somehow. Notice that intuition and faith aren't on the list. So don't use those two things. Nobody just knows in their heart what their ancestors did on May 18th, 1678. It takes research to find those answers. So don't be going out on a limb, being whimsical, fantastical. All you gotta do is some research, cross references, you know, ask questions, eliminate the lies, facts and evidence, y'all. But when the world was black, we're gonna leave it right there. All black everything, think it's bright. Big dreams, many streams. We'll like it, share it, subscribe it, and put your thumbs up like you're hitchhiking. Let's go, y'all. Peace and love. One more again, getting it busy, getting it in, growing. Thanks to y'all, man. Love y'all. Out.